It's me, Chuck Steele. Only joking, it's not Chuck Steele, it's just Tim. So hi, I'm Tim Allen, and this is my first time doing Facebook Live, so I'm a bit new to this. So I'm gathering that the idea is that you throw questions at me. So whoever's out there, please say hi. As you can see, I've bought a few of my toys from different projects, so they're kind of here just to, I thought, stimulate some questions and give you guys something to talk about. Well, I'm not quite sure, being Stop Motion Lovers Club, it sounds a little bit like, I'm not quite sure what love-related stop motion questions I'll get, so I'll go from there. So anyone who's out there, please send me a message and I'll go from there. I've got, to begin with, I've got some questions that Julian has kindly given me to start off with. How did I start in stop motion and why? Okay. The truth is, I mean, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I've now been animating for 18 years professionally, but before that I did a degree in stop motion or in animation, and I didn't even know that animation was something I could even do. As a kid, I loved drawing. I loved creating worlds, creating characters, comic books. I did a lot of drawing comic books and stuff. So we knew I'd do something with art, but we didn't know what it was going to be. And I was looking for model making degrees. And while I went to Bournemouth University, which is in South England, and they had a model making course, which I was looking to do. And as I was waiting to be shown around, suddenly I was, somebody came in and said, "Is there anyone here to see the animation course?" And my eyes lit up, because that wasn't even something that I knew you could do. So I looked around the animation course. It was all 2D, but straight away that was it, I was made. And because I've been such a big fan of, I loved Nightmare Before Christmas, I loved Wind in the Willows when I was a kid, so it had to be something with models. So I knew it was animation, but had to be models, and I looked around, and I found a course in Glamorgan University, which is now called the University of South Wales, and worked incredibly hard to make sure that I earned myself a place on that. So I got on an animation degree, and that was obviously the beginning of it. So, now I'm getting some likes, which means people are out there, which is great. If someone wants to throw me a question, that will also put me on a nice little tangent. But speaking of which, I've leapt into the next question. Did I study and where? Yeah, Glamorgan's now called the University of South Wales, and it's in, but it is just north of, it's in Cardiff now. So I did a 3-year degree, and I was focused on stop motion right from the very beginning, and it was a bit of an up and down journey for me. There were some things that I did that the tutors loved, some things I did that they really thought completely sucked. There were some projects I did that were, I really got a dressing down for not doing what the tutors thought was a good enough job. So I then had to work really hard to prove myself again. And my 3rd year film, Captain Kapow, I don't think I've got anything Kapow related here. This is, where do we start? My friend Chuck, obviously, we met. This is from the premiere of the pilot, Raging Balls of Steel Justice, and the entire audience were given masks to wear. So when Mike Mort had to present the film, he was greeted with an entire audience wearing this mask, which was all very, very strange. Right, loads of people know the answer to this question. What was my first job as a professional animator? And the answer to that is El Nombre. El Nombre was a BBC educational program. It was all about, well, this particular series was all about counting money. So each episode was about 4 minutes long, and El Nombre is a kind of Zorro style gerbil. So there's there's little children gerbils, and the little children gerbils are trying to buy a jelly bean from the machine, or some money for the raffle, or they're trying to save up some money in their piggy bank, but they never know if they've got enough money. So they get very, it gets very dramatic, and they get very anxious about, oh, I do not know, is this enough money? I don't know, but I know someone who does. And El Nombre swings in on his rope, he lands, does some nice little rhyme, and he helps them count their money up to see if they've got the right amount of money. So much of the episode, normally about 80% of the episode, would be them standing around a table counting. So it was a lot of just standing there pointing. So pointing, counting, and then putting the money into piles. I mean, so much of the animation was really, really boring and not cool. They wanted 18 seconds a day. And but it wasn't all bad at all. There was a lot of stuff that was very interesting, like the bad guy, the wicked Don Fandango. He would steal the pizza or the trophy. It was always food or something like a trophy he wanted. And he would then try to run away. El Nombre would use his lasso to stop him. So that meant I got bits of action to do. Like for my first ever animation job, I didn't have any experience really. But doing a lasso animation or a custard pie fight with big splatting custard pies, or it then got more and more ambitious. There was stuff where El Nombre would jump on the back of a motorcycle and chase after a speeding train, and then leap onto the roof of the train. So that there was lots of really interesting action sequences. So it was 8 months I was doing, I think it was 8, maybe 10 months I was doing El Nombre for. And I learned, I learned a lot. I think I worked out that in 2.5 months of being there, I'd spent more hours physically animating than the whole 3 years that I'd been at university, because university, obviously, you're doing so many other things like storyboarding and editing and puppet making. So I realized I was starting to get a serious amount of practice, which was great. But all good things come to an end. El Nombre finished for me. Saying that, they did then ask me back about 6 months later to animate and direct the next series. So there was 2 animators, and I was one of those animators, and it was more I was overseeing and organizing the whole thing really. But yeah, El Nombre, look it up. It's a very quirky, weird project. I owe a lot to it. It's the thing that got me going. And I had a lot of fun doing it as well. Right, I'm gonna, next question. Right, in which can you improvise some things when you are animating? Yeah, it depends on the project, is the question. The majority of things, especially when I started, it was all children's series for years. So, and when you're being asked to do something stupid like 15 or 18 seconds a day, there's no time for a rehearsal. You've got to just get in there and do it. So I was, yeah, so you normally have a quick chat with the director. You'll talk about the story, what happens in that moment, how the character's feeling, and then there'll be practical things like the character might have to physically pick something up and then look right of camera in order to cut with the next shot. So long as I make certain things work that the story needs and the continuity needs, and I get the rough feeling of what the director wants, then yeah, you can do a certain amount of interpretation. It all depends on the project. One of my favorite examples was on Shaun the Sheep, and I had a shot where there's all these sheep are fighting for a jigsaw piece. It's the last jigsaw piece to finish the jigsaw. And it's a 13-second shot, so 13 seconds of fighting. And I was told by the director, do whatever you want to do, just make it funny. And at the end, Shaun gets the jigsaw piece, and then Bits of the dog jumps on him. So I had about 10 seconds of animation where I could do whatever I wanted, but the brief was make them fight, make it funny. So I just had to find ways to entertain myself, relax, because I think that's quite a scary thing to do. If someone says you've got 10 seconds, do something fun. So yeah, sometimes you get a lot of interpretation. Incidentally, you'll notice I'm wearing my Isle of Dogs crew t-shirt here. Working for Wes Anderson, there's definitely less free, what's the word? It was improvisation is the word I'm after. Yeah, Wes is very, very precise about everything he wants from a shot, the speed of a movement, which frame something happens, the position. So it's just a good example that some projects you've got lots of improvisation, other projects very little. It all depends on the director and how he wants to go about it. Cool. Before I do the next question, let me find a cool little prop. This courgette here isn't actually from Ma Vie de Courgette or My Life as a Zucchini. This is one that a friend made for me as a little present for lending him his kit. I wouldn't be lucky enough to have an actual courgette puppet. In fact, us animators rarely get to keep any actual puppets from the production. Next question. So, oh my goodness, which scene has been the most difficult to animate so far? I think I've got to go for Magic Piano. I mean, loads of shots on that were ridiculously hard, and most people haven't seen or seen Magic Piano. It's on iTunes if you just Google search The Magic Piano, and it was kind of a follow-up film from Peter and the Wolf, because Peter and the Wolf won its Oscar and did so well, and they then got funding to make a film about the life of Chopin. But this film had this 2-meter high puppet, which was a piano with wings, and it was wonderfully made, but it was all a bit of us learning as we went. So the flying machine struggled to hold its own weight, and also getting a rig that could support it in midair was incredibly difficult. So if you on my show reel that's on my Vimeo channel, you can see one shot of the flying piano, the flying machine we called it. The film's called The Magic Piano. We called the actual flying puppet itself the flying machine. And so there's one shot of hi Jefferson. There's one shot on the end of my show reel which gives you an idea how hard the flying machine was to animate. When we got the rig for the flying machine, now bear in mind the flying machine's a 2-meter high puppet. Its wings, the arms for it can't hold the weight of its wings. So already we're having to have a wire from the ceiling to pull the wings up so they don't collapse. And then the rig came through to animate with it, which we had lots of meetings and jokes about what sort of rig we were going to need to hold this 2-meter puppet, which of course is always flying. And this rig affectionately became known as a joke called Rigzilla. Someone called it Rigzilla in a meeting, the name stuck, and that was it. So Rigzilla took a long time to come. It must have gone through some teething problems because it came much later than we had hoped it would. And then of course we had a lot of shots to do. And Rigzilla was very different to the way that I had designed it. So I instantly got it and thought, oh dear, how are we going to do this? Because this rig, I don't think is capable of what I needed it to do. Just going back, the question is, what's the most difficult shot I've ever done? So I had this one shot where I knew that we'd need something like a month to animate this shot of the flying machine. The flying machine goes into a storm, and then it's hit by, it flies into a dark cloud, it's hit by a mad gust of wind and gets dragged left, right and center through this storm. And this was with a rig that was brand new, and I was basically given that shot just to kind of prove to me that, Tim, if you can animate this shot with the rig, then you can animate any of the shots, which is why they gave me the most difficult flying shot first. And yeah, the rig wasn't really able to do all the things that I wanted it to, but I managed to get a bit extra out of it by unscrewing lots of bits to be able to get an extra hinge, if you will. Sometimes I had to hammer it into position. I literally had a hammer in my toolbox to get the rig into the right place. Sometimes I'd use a mop to wedge the flying machine into a certain position. So I was fighting. I was really fighting to force this 2-meter flying puppet into certain positions. And yeah, it did take 4 weeks, and it was exhausting. But it's one of my favorite shots on the film. It worked out really well, so I'm really, really happy for that. Is that a question that's come through? It says, hello Tim, is that Rosario? We wish to have you here for a workshop someday. I guess along with your career, you work with different kind of puppets animations, puppet armatures. Which were the most common technical problems you had with structures? Oh, that's an interesting one. I can think of a few things there. First of all, Rosario, I'd be very happy to come and do a workshop. Where did you say you are? Cordoba. Cordoba. Wow. Okay, I need to do some geography because I'd be very happy to come and discover Cordoba. Right, armature, common armature issues that I've had. Technical problems. One that I've often had is not having 2 neck joints or neck joints in the wrong place. Your neck, you should have a joint. There's basically one ball and sockety hinge here and another one there. And sometimes in puppets, you don't have both, or they're in the wrong place, and that can make certain head movements very, very difficult. Other ones that I've had, let me see. You get all sorts of classics. Puppets with very small feet, that can be a challenge unless they're really well made, because they've got to hold the whole weight of the body. Wrists, I often find wrists are put in the wrong place. So people will often put a wrist joint here, thinking they need to do that. And yeah, sure, you do need to do that. There's a hinge there. But your actual wrist for twisting is the whole arm. And I've often had puppets where they're expecting the joint here to be used for the twisting. And of course here you've got, I forget the name of these 2 bones, but you've got the 2 joints that run all the way down. So basically the twist comes from here. So when it's just here, what happens is it's just this little area that's expected to do the entire twisting. So this can really get ringed, this bit of skin here. That's a fairly common one. I'd say a classic, one that we've always had problems with, is eyes and eyelids. There's been so many different systems developed, but you end up spending all your time with a cocktail stick trying to get into an eye to get the damn eyelid to stay in the right place. That they often either fall off or they wiggle about a little, too much, or you're always trying to adjust it, and adjusting the eyelid sometimes moves the eyeball. So getting a really good working system for an eyeball and an eyelid is it's crucial, because all of our the majority of our performance is coming from our eyes. So, and also it's the really subtle movements within the eyes that's particularly important. But of course, for subtle movements, you need really, really specific control. So when you're struggling to control the eyeball and the eyelid, you're just there getting really fiddly and eventually swearing out loud. Courgette, by the way, had a wonderful eyelid system, and to Christina and some of the puppet makers who were working very much on them, I think it helps that they've got big heads, which were very light, by the way, but the eyeballs, behind the eyeballs, they could be sort of held in place with a rubber band on the back that went around the eyeball, and you could change the tensioning on the eyeball to make it a bit looser or a bit tighter, because if it's too loose, it's just moving too much. If it's very hard, you're just going to force it and it gets tricky. But Kim, the animation director, and the puppet makers developed a really good system for this. Oh, there's a load of questions coming through, so I might have to move on, Rosario. Thank you. Let me see. Mariano, lovely, hello. During 4 weeks of a shot, how do you manage to keep directions if a director is being very demanding on details? And as you mentioned about Anderson retakes, well, demanding directors, who'd have thought? I have a lot of sympathy with the director in the fact that they've got all the pressure on them to make the production a success. When the reviews come in, when people analyze and judge the film, they're always talking about the director, the decisions the director made. And the truth is, the director, they're trying to make the best of the situation to tell the story. And it might be that the puppet can't give them the look they want, or there's not enough time or money, or they direct the animator and then the shot doesn't really work the way the director wants. But sometimes, yes, the director just plain changes their mind, which is they're completely allowed to do. It's them trying to find the best way of delivering the shot, and they don't know all the answers straight away. You've sometimes got to find the best way of doing something. So in terms of your question, how do I keep directions if a director is being very demanding on details? How do I keep directions? Well, there's different ways of doing it. Sometimes if they want a specific look or pose, you might put the character in that position, take a still, show it to the director, and some of the key moments in the shot, you'll take stills of those. And then once you've got one that the director's happy with, you've got, you use them as reference frames. So you can then, as you're doing the shot, you can refer to them to try and make sure in the right position. And with Wes on Isle of Dogs, that was very much the case. I would often, the characters, of course, had lots of different faces. And I would maybe, he wants a certain look, so I'd choose maybe 3 or 4 faces that I thought were the most suitable. And I'd send him a still image of those faces with a little post-it note saying which number face it was, and the name of the face, like if it's anxious or if it's happy, or eyebrows up was another one, or eyebrows down. And then it would be up to Wes to choose which face he wants. But I'm just helping him find it, to be honest. In terms of directors being demanding, I've got a few other stories there. The honest answer is you have to grit your teeth and get on with the shot. That's what you're there to do. I have worked for some directors that have been particularly difficult, but that's more because they're not very experienced, or they're struggling to get the film they wanted to, or there's some other political situation, or maybe they don't really know what they're doing and they're winging their way through it. But it's still my job to help them get the best film and the best shots they can do. So I just see that I'm there to help the director, and you're building a different relationship every time, really. Next question, Mr. Matt Jones. Hello. Do I get to work with the puppet makers, influence their designs? Well, Matt, only if you're there early on in the production. Normally, the animation director or supervisor is often very closely working with puppet makers in terms of how things are made, in terms of function.
I mean, often though, you can be on a production and the puppets are made and you've had nothing to do with it, and then you're told to just make it work. So it's quite a privilege to be involved early on in the puppet making process. And frankly, the earlier an animator is involved in the puppet making process, obviously things are made to work. Also, they're made in a more practical way. So fit for purpose is the phrase I'm after, because just because something looks nice doesn't mean it's easy to use. Fantastic Mr. Fox, we had a fairly famous animator phrase, whatever you do, don't blink them, because the puppets, the blinking system was notoriously painful to work with. But thankfully on Isle of Dogs, you'll notice there's almost no blinking, because Wes didn't like the look of the blinks. And when we started doing blinks, he cut them out. Going back to Courgette Map, Kim worked very closely with the puppet makers, Kim, the animation director, and did a fantastic job with the design and the practical use of the puppets. So they really were easy to use. And the good thing with that is when the puppet's easy to use, then obviously you can focus on the performance, the acting, the detail. It's when you're fighting the thing that it's such a big problem. And the magic piano, that example again, I was involved quite heavily in the design and build of it, but it didn't always go quite as planned, and we always just had to, whatever we got, we had to work with it. So even there, when I was involved, it was still very hard to get everything to function the way you want, because time and money is always an issue, and there's not really enough time to make something twice. Next question. These are great responses, Tim. Thanks for sharing your experience. No problem. Thank you very, very much. Jefferson, do you see any difference between animating a film by Wes Anderson and another director? Absolutely. Wes is probably the most prescriptive director I've worked for. And by that, he's really on every detail. So when I do a rehearsal for Wes, now the rehearsal, I've got to hit the timings of the animatic, but I can then, this is my chance to propose ideas to Wes when I do the rehearsal. I do positions and I show it all to him for the first time. He then sees it, he might then re-edit it. He might then ask, say, he doesn't like this head position, can I change the face there? Or a classic that Wes did was how you hold objects. So I'm gonna do a little Frank and Winnie crew mug, blatant plug. So Wes wouldn't let you hold something like this or like this. He wanted everything held daintily. So something more like that. So Wes would then come back with very specific things, and I then, in my rehearsal, I'd then just take a still of the character holding a mug like that. We'd re-edit that into my rehearsal, and I've then got a new version of the rehearsal to look at. And my rehearsals, I tended to put a lot of detail on them. I'd shoot it on some bits on 4s, some bits even on 2s if there was a lot of detail, because it gave Wes lots to feedback on, and if you didn't give him detail, he would be more likely to want you to change it when you're doing the actual shot, which nobody wants if we can help it. So does that answer your question? Any difference between animated film by Wes and another director? Yeah, I would just say he was the most, I'm not going to use the word finicky, I will use the word detailed, about wanting to see, about all the details of a shot, and me wanting to get that right first before I started the shot. Whereas with other directors, there's much more of a conversation, and then you go into it a bit more as a creative performer, really. With Wes, it's very technical. Hit that position, hit that timing, hit this pose, hit that pose. He's meticulous. So, but the good thing is, so long as you do what you're told, you'll get it right and it'll get approved. So I quite enjoyed it, to be honest. It was you're not worrying too much about whether you've got the performance right. With Wes, it's more hitting all the things he wants you to hit. Next question. Matt, hello. After a month working on the shot, is there a risk of a retake? How do you stay sane? I can answer the first question, Matt. No, after a month, absolutely not. I don't recall seeing something that's been a month long and redone. And that's obviously a different pressure. And also, when you're doing a really long shot, it's a long shot in the film for a reason, and it means it must be an important moment, and it's normally building up to something at the end. So if anything, your work needs to get better, and you're saving the best moment till last sometimes. So it's a bit more like doing a marathon than doing a sprint. And the first one I did was Corpse Bride. It was the wedding table, which reminds me, I'm going to go off camera for a second. I've got a little prop I'm going to bring back.